Welcome to Beyond the Scarlet Moon, where we uncover tales of the strange, the chilling, and the unexplained. Tonight, we share a story that will make you think twice about late-night drives and lonely highways. What happens when time stands still and an uninvited passenger joins the ride? Buckle up, because this journey is one you won't forget. A few years ago, it was my college friend's birthday. We had some drinks, and by around 1:30 a.m., everyone decided to head home since some had work the next day. Since I'd been drinking and didn't bring my car, I texted my brother to pick me up. One of my friends offered me a ride since they had their car, but there were already 6 people inside, and I knew it would be too cramped. Although I knew it wasn't safe to drive drunk, I trusted my friend enough to know he wasn't that intoxicated. They waited with me until my brother arrived, so we could all leave together since we were heading in the same direction. Soon, we were driving along a quiet, dimly lit highway. At one stoplight, my brother's car and my friend's car were side by side. When the light turned green, they drove ahead, leaving us to follow at a slight distance. Despite the gap, we could clearly see their car. It was just us on the road. I was starting to drift off when my brother suddenly slammed on the brakes. Startled, I asked what happened, and he muttered, "There's an old man crossing." I squinted ahead and saw him too, walking slowly, hunched over. It was strange to see someone like that at this hour. My brother stopped the car to let him pass. But as the old man reached the front of the car, he suddenly stopped, turned, and stared straight at us. His eyes were dark, almost empty, and his face expressionless. I shivered and glanced ahead, but my friend's car was no longer in sight. Maybe they had gone too far ahead, I thought. I closed my eyes, hoping to fall asleep again, but something about that man's stare stayed with me. A loud yell jolted me awake. My brother was gripping the rosary hanging from the rearview mirror, his knuckles white. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "Look at the time," he hissed. I checked my phone. "It's 2:30 a.m., I said, confused. "No," he snapped, his voice trembling. "You've been asleep for a long time, but it's still 2:30 a.m. We should have been home by now." I tried to reason with him, suggesting maybe we had gotten lost, but he shook his head firmly. "I know this route like the back of my hand," he insisted. "We're not lost. Something's wrong." Before I could respond, he glanced at the rearview mirror again and froze. His face paled, and then he cursed under his breath. "What? What is it?" I asked, panicking. Instead of answering, he gripped the wheel tightly, and I followed his gaze to the back seat. My breath caught in my throat. The old man was sitting there, staring at us. His face was still blank, but his presence was suffocating. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My brother stepped on the gas, speeding down the highway, but no matter how fast we went, the old man didn't move. He just sat there, watching us. Then my brother slammed on the brakes again, but the car didn't stop. We were speeding uncontrollably. He cursed, yelling that the brakes weren't working. I clutched my seat, tears streaming down my face. I wasn't ready to die. Suddenly, the engine sputtered and died. The car slowed to a stop, and I hesitantly opened my eyes. The old man was gone. My brother tried to restart the car, but it wouldn't budge. He lashed out, blaming me for everything, saying this was all my fault. Desperate, I tried calling for help. I called our friends, but none of them picked up. I called our mom, but her phone was also unreachable. Then, when I glanced at my phone, I noticed something strange. The time showed it was already morning. We prayed together, trembling. The eerie silence around us was unbearable. There were no other cars on the road, no one to help us. After what felt like forever, the car finally restarted. But the nightmare wasn't over. We drove for another hour, yet we still weren't home. The road seemed endless, and we couldn't find a way out. We cried, terrified and exhausted. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we saw another car. It was like the world had suddenly come back to life. A few minutes later, we made it home. When we got inside, our mom was furious, yelling at us for being late. But I barely heard her. My eyes were glued to the clock on the wall. It was still almost 3 a.m. My knees buckled, and I broke down sobbing. My brother walked in, saw the clock, and started crying too. Our mom panicked, asking what was wrong, but all we could do was cry and tell her everything. She told us she'd heard stories about that highway, about spirits haunting the road. Some of them were said to mislead travelers or worse. We were still processing everything when our mom woke us up again a few hours later. The police were at the door. They asked me when I'd last seen our friends. Apparently, they had been in an accident on the same highway. All of them were dead. I couldn't believe it. The police said their car had crashed, and they were declared dead on arrival. But we hadn't seen any accident. There was no wreck, no sign of anything unusual when we passed through. We went to the crash site the next day, and there was their car completely totaled. I couldn't stop crying. To this day, I don't know if that old man saved us or if he wanted to harm us but failed. Either way, I thank God my brother and I made it out alive. Thank you for joining us under Beyond the Scarlet Moon. As you step away from this tale, remember, the next time you're driving late at night, be mindful of what or who might join you on the road. Some roads lead to safety, while others lead to something far darker. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never travel alone in the dead of night.